Congress just passed a sweeping new bill, but what does that mean for your retirement? So, the One Big Beautiful Act has passed. What does that mean for you, and how can you plan to use it to your advantage over the course of your retirement years? Now, I'm Frankie Guida, certified financial planner and retirement planner with a Better Way Financial, and today we're going to talk about how this bill has passed and what are the pros, what are the cons to it, and what can we take as actions to make sure that we are utilizing it to our fullest advantage. Now, one of the things that we've seen is that they have increased, one of the positives we've seen is that they have increased that standard deduction over age 65. So if you're 65 or older right now and you hear this, your standard deduction has gone up if you are electing to take the standard deduction. If you're single, it's gone up by 6,000. If you're married filing jointly, it's gone up by 12,000. Now these are subject to income limitations. So if you're making more than 75,000 single or 150,000 married filing jointly, you won't be able to be the beneficiary of this. However, if your income is less than that, you will be able to get that advantage. So this is something you want to take advantage of, especially if you're in a lower income scenario where you can start to utilize that higher standard deduction. This higher standard deduction can also potentially mean, and along with some of the other things that went along with this bill, is a lower potential for taxes on your Social Security. So if there's a higher standard deduction, then there's less income being shown. If there's less income being shown, it's a greater probability that you could be taxed at the 0% tax bracket for your Social Security, or being reduced from 85% of it being taxable to 50% of it being taxable. So these are some of the advantages with the new law that was just recently passed. Another advantage we've seen is that it has permanently extended that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So this is something that in 2025, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was scheduled to go away following at the end of this year. So something that we had planned for in the future was those taxes going up. You've heard of the sunset, so that's something that we have seen as likely. Now, this is no longer the case. There is no sunset provision in there anymore. They have indefinitely extended those Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So that's something that we will continue to see, these lower tax brackets, until legislators make a change. So this is something we can continue to enjoy and look forward to in our future as we do that tax planning going forward. Another thing is the SALT limitations. So the SALT stands for state and local taxes. So if you do itemize and you don't take the standard deduction, you can write off your SALT, basically state and local taxes. Now, there used to be a limit of $10,000. Through 2029, they increased that limit, and that has gone up as high as $40,000. However, there is another income limitation here as long as that income is under 500,000. Above 500,000, it does start to phase out. However, you can now do pretty much double what that amount is if you're right at that 500,000, or anywhere between 10,000 and 20 to 25,000. You won't really see it a whole lot higher in the state of Pennsylvania because our state taxes are not very high at around 3%. However, there are some states out there like California and some others that have very high state taxes, which they'll be able to take the advantage of being able to write off the full extent, or up to 40,000 of those state taxes there. And then the last of the positives with this tax bill here, and these are just to name a few of them at this point, the last one of those is the federal inheritance tax deduction has gone up to over 15 million. So instead of if you have an estate that was 5 million, if it was greater than 5 million under the previous legislation, you would have had to, when you passed on that estate, your children would have had to pay federal inheritance taxes. Whereas now, with it increasing up to 15 million, as long as your estate's under that 15 million, there's no federal inheritance taxes that the kids have to pay. So that's another advantage. Now, if you want to look for more information about how we can make this apply to you and how we can develop a plan in your circumstances, feel free to click on that link below and we'll be able to schedule a personalized 15-minute phone call just talking about what your goals are and discovering how to make this apply for you. This bill does, however, come with some drawbacks. So some of the things that we do want to look for are, well, what are the pros and what are the cons? And there are some cons with this. One of the major ones is that some estimates out there are saying as much as a $4 trillion deficit increase is what we are seeing from this Tax Cuts and Jobs Act Part 2, so to speak, with this one big beautiful bill. So it is something that we want to consider. How are we digging ourselves out of this hole? It seems like both sides of the aisle are continuing to add and add and add onto that national deficit. Something's going to have to bend or break. So we need to have some type of plan in there for our country to make sure that we're not going to keep on that downward spiral of increasing debt and increasing debt. However, that is one of the major concerns with this. Could it add extra pressure to Medicare, to Social Security? It certainly could. So these are some things that we want to keep an eye out for to make sure that there's no major changes. And if there are changes, that we're making those updates in the financial plan as well. Another thing we've seen with this that is a negative is cuts to Medicaid. One thing that they're saying is they need at least 80 hours of work per month to be able to continue to have the Medicaid coverage. So that is a new thing that we haven't seen before. In essence, it makes sense in some ways, having to work to be able to get the healthcare benefit. Of course, this is only for able-bodied people. If you're not healthy enough to work, they're not going to require you to continue working when you're not healthy. But that is something that is a negative of this, as well as that it's making it harder to get that Medicaid coverage. Another one is that most of these provisions are temporary. It is something that is not lasting forever. For instance, this senior tax breaks with the extra standard deduction is only going through 2029 and not continuing 2030 and thereafter. There are a few other ones, the state and local tax one, that one is also through 2029. So it's not something that's designed to continue going on forever. So that is a problem. That is a drawback of it. You want to get the advantage while you can before it goes away. So these are some of the drawbacks of that one big beautiful bill. And if you would like more content, and feel free to click on that link below and you'll be able to see some of the other pages. Feel free to follow us for that. If you'd like to see how we can develop a plan around your specific needs, feel free to also click on that link where you're going to be able to have a personalized discovery meeting, a 15-minute phone call where we just get to know you better and your retirement goals. So that's it for me, Frankie Guida, retirement planner and certified financial planner here with A Better Way Financial. Thanks for listening.